All right. Well, welcome everybody to episode 3. And thanks for joining us today. I've actually got a special guest here. It's not just me today. Got my very own brother here with us. And he actually hosts his own YouTube channel called Political Therapy.
Yeah,
called Political Therapy. It's a newer YouTube channel, just like this podcast. And so we've kind of been learning together, growing together, and I thought it'd be fun to have him along for this episode.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, I thought that, given all of the conversations that we normally have, I thought that a good topic for this episode would be self-love. Because I think that's something that you and I have talked about a lot, of course, but also it's something that is relevant to pretty much everybody. And I also think it's something that's talked about a lot on social media.
Yeah, and that's why we're doing a podcast about it.
Yeah, we
just
wanted to add to the voice, really. We didn't want to contribute anything. We just wanted to...
Yeah, our voices were definitely going to add something to this conversation.
Confuse people more, actually. Yeah, this is a misinformation campaign. So... all right.
This is going on Spotify, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely going to censor you.
What do you mean?
She's like, this is a misinformation campaign.
We'll get to know. This is only the third time I've done this.
Yeah. Well, actually, I don't think it's how Spotify works. I don't think Spotify has enough, I don't think they have enough of a moderation team in order to
Stop
censor.
shit talking Spotify. That's where the podcast episode is going.
Okay, damn.
Don't shit talk any of the other ones either. It's going on all of them.
Apple Music, right?
Yeah.
You mean the worst Spotify?
Okay, all right. Well,
is there any other ones that I should?
Yeah, Amazon Music.
This is right, Amazon Music.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon has a podcast section.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh.
If any of the listeners didn't know that, you can check us out there too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is also gonna go on YouTube for those of you that would rather watch.
Oh yes, there's a video recording where
watch us talk. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to get into it.
Okay, let's get into it. So, what do you think self-love is?
I think that self-love is downstream of self-respect. I think it's easier to define self-love through its antecedents. Or is that right? Is it antecedents before?
Let's just keep the vocab to like a 3rd grade level with this. You're already losing me, man.
Okay. I think self-love is this thing that exists only after you get to self-respect. It's very difficult to define because I think it's a lot more of a... It's much more of a deep emotion than it is just like this ephemeral... Sorry, you just said use 3rd grade vocabulary. All right, fuck it. This is... Yeah. It's this sort of thing that you just feel like really, really deeply. Like, it's this enduring sense of respect for yourself. It's this enduring idea that you want the best for yourself, which I think is kind of the way that we define love anyway. It's just the wanting the best for someone else. If that's what love is, then self-love must just be... self-love must just be just wanting the best for yourself and having respect for yourself.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I'd probably disagree with you, actually. I think that it's not downstream from self-respect. I think
Really?
Self-respect is probably downstream from self-love.
You think you... Wait, hold on. There's no way you think this. That doesn't make sense.
For those of you that don't know us, this is how all of our conversations go.
Well, okay. So you're saying that you find self-respect after you love yourself.
I think that in order to develop any of those things, the self-respect, the self-care, you have to love yourself first. I think the reason we do all of these things is...
Because you love yourself first.
Because you love yourself. And if anything...
Can you love someone that you don't respect?
Yeah.
Really?
Of course.
I don't think so.
Really, I think I've had friends or family do things that have made me lose respect for them, but I didn't love them any less. If anything,
okay.
The reason I cared so much is because I loved them.
Sure, but isn't it... is there... Okay, I guess I can't ask you anyone specifically who you don't... Right, but really like? Is it really possible? Because in my life, I've never loved someone without first respecting them, like respecting them very deeply as a person and the role they have in my life, and then I loved them. But I couldn't love them before I respected them. Like, love has respect inherent in it.
I think that you're saying that respect has love inherent in it.
No. No, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, wait, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what you're
Yeah,
saying.
that's what I'm saying.
You're saying that respect has love within it.
Well, I think it's different when you're talking about with someone else versus with yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, I think...
Wait, so do you think that with other people, you respect and then love?
I think... So, okay, here's my problem with the whole, like, self-love movement /
Is it a movement now?
I don't know. I don't know what to call it.
Okay.
But it's something that's talked about a lot.
Sure.
And I really like what Matthew Hussey has to say about it. If you remember,
Love
in
Life,
one of the chapters of his book,
yeah.
Love Life, right? So he talks about how self-love, I think this is what he was saying. Self-love needs a rebrand because it is talked about and referred to as a feeling. And
I agree it's not a feeling.
It's like, it's a thing that you do.
I guess I did just define it as a feeling, so maybe.
And so when it comes to, like, we're talking about, like, it's downstream from self-respect.
Yeah.
Or downstream from self-care. It's like something you develop later.
Yeah.
I think that in respecting yourself or in caring for yourself, you're showing yourself self-love. It's not this, like,
I see what you mean.
State that you reach. It's a practice that you have to, like, practice.
Do you think you could practice self-love without practicing self-respect?
Do you think you can practice self-love without practicing self-respect?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's, like, you can do... I guess not. I feel like at any time you do, like, something for yourself or to take care of yourself or to put yourself first, you're kind of inherently showing respect for yourself.
Right.
And also love.
Do you think you could respect someone without loving them?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Easily.
I agree.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that one is a prerequisite where the other one is not. You could theoretically respect someone without loving them. You could theoretically also respect yourself without loving yourself. But you couldn't love yourself without respecting yourself first. And you couldn't love somebody else without respecting them first as well.
Well, okay. Have you ever had an experience with somebody where you loved them already, but they did something and you lost respect for them?
So think of the prerequisite as, like, there's X threshold you need in order to love someone, right? And once they've passed that threshold, you can lose some respect for them, but as long as they haven't gone below that threshold, you can still love them just as much.
I think every mother on the planet would disagree with what you just said right now.
Really? Wait, okay. Why?
Yep. Because I don't... You're talking about love as if there's, like, a reason why we do it. You know, like
okay, fair.
If you ask a mother, like, why do they love their child, like, they're not going to say, like, they're a very respectable child.
Yeah,
they act really good and they're really smart. It's like, no, I just love him or her or it or whatever because, like, it's my child.
Would it be fair to say that the kind of the kind of love that a mother shows their child is different than the kind of love that you have for somebody else? It's like a friend. Do you think love is unconditional?
Which question do you want me to answer?
I mean, theoretically both, but I feel like the second one helps the first one. Because I think a mother's love is unconditional. But I'm not sure if your love for other people, not you specifically, but
yeah,
I feel like an individual's love for another person is not necessarily unconditional.
Yeah, the whole unconditional thing is tough. I think it can be unconditional. I think it just depends. Like,
it's a choice you make, right? It's an action. Isn't that what Matthew Hussey was saying? Like, it needs a rebrand because it's more of an action than it is a feeling.
Well, he was talking about self-love, not unconditionality.
Okay.
I think with the whole unconditional thing, like, people always use like a mother and their child because it's like it's like one of the more intense versions
Right.
of like somebody loving somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good example of like something that seems unconditional.
Yeah.
I don't know. The reason the reason it's hard for me to say is because to really see if someone's love for someone else is unconditional, you have to put them through every single condition.
Well, couldn't it be the case that, and maybe this actually works against my argument, but I think it's still worth saying. For someone's love to be unconditional, that person would have to offer them nothing, right? And you still have to love them regardless.
Right.
Right. And I think that when someone no longer offers you something, do you still love them? And the immediate answer that you want to give is yes, of course,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I don't mean like if they're comatose. I mean if they literally like they don't offer you anything in your life, right? They don't. A lot of people like I love my friends because we have like a mutual self-respect, which is why I believe that respect is upstream of love, right? We also offer things to each other, not like materially, but like friendship wise. Like
Mm-hmm.
one of my friends, she really helps me like work through things in my mind, right? She's very really effective at me saying something to her, and then she can say it back to me better than I explained it to her, and then break it down in a bunch of different ways.
Right.
That's something that she's really really good at, and one thing that I think our friendship is downstream of. And I also offer things to her like that. If all of those things went away, I'm not sure what we would offer each other, and I'm not sure if we would be as good friends we are now, or if we'd even be friends in the first place.
Yeah, I think there's a distinction to be made between, and you've heard me say this before, our love for people and our relationships with them.
Okay.
And I think that our love for people has the potential to be unconditional,
Mm-hmm.
but people often get confused with our relationships with people, which are pretty much always conditional. And sometimes, like, I mean, like the level of conditions you have
Mm-hmm.
varies quite a bit from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's healthy to have conditions for your relationships.
Sure, I agree with that.
Right? Otherwise, you can end up in some pretty bad situations.
Mm-hmm.
But the love that you have for somebody, I think whether or not it's conditional is just, like, totally subjective.
So then how do you define...
Because, I mean, like, you could, for every mother that unconditionally loves their kid, I'm sure you could find a mother who doesn't love their kid to begin with, who never wanted them and doesn't love them.
Oh, I'm not sure if it's 1-to-1, but...
Okay, well, whatever. You get what...
Yeah, I get what you mean. Like, there probably exists a mother out there somewhere that doesn't love their kid, I suppose. It seems a little difficult, but maybe.
I don't think it's very difficult. I think that happens all the time.
Fair enough.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so then how do you define self-love?
I think I would define it as I think I would just very simply define it as something that you do.
Okay, but what is the thing that you do?
Anything that is for your own good.
Okay, so any action that you take that's for your own good is an expression of self-love.
Pretty much. And like it's a verb, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like I mean, it's totally just like context and situationally dependent, but
Mm-hmm.
anytime you need something and you're taking steps to fill that need, that's like good
That's
for
an
you.
expression
That's
of
like
self-love.
healthy for you. That's what's in your best interest.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's an expression of self-love. That is self-love.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I probably agree with you on that. But how is that not self-care? Is that not the same thing? Is there a difference between self-love and self-care? Because I would, in my mind, self-care is the verb to what self-love is the noun.
Okay. If I think self-care.
My mind, I'm so politics brain that my mind went if self-love is government,
Yeah.
then self-care is the executive branch. It's the thing that actually does the execution of
executes the legislation. I think, I don't know, maybe this is just like a semantics thing, but I've always thought of self-care more as like, it's kind of like, it's still an action-oriented thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's very like, it's like very physical. It usually doesn't involve like other people. It's like,
Really?
I think of just like,
Interesting.
I just think of like, okay, like taking some alone time, or like taking a good shower, like giving myself some time to read, or
Couldn't hanging out with a friend be self-care?
it could. That's what I was saying. It's kind of like a semantics thing. I just don't think of self-care like that. The example that comes to my mind is like, okay, say you're in a toxic relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and you end the relationship, like for your own good.
Mm-hmm.
You realize like, okay, this is not good for me. I need to get out of this situation, and so you end it. Like that is like characteristically self-love to me,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't really like ring the bell of like self-care. Self-care feels like,
I see. It doesn't feel like, yeah, that feels
It
more
just
like
doesn't-
self-love than self-care.
yeah, I don't really know what the difference is, but it just feels like a different flavor. Like the thoughts and images that always come to mind when I think of self-care
Mhm.
are,
Spa.
yeah, kind of that sort of like energy.
Yeah.
Just like these physical things that I'm doing to like take care of myself, like work out and like,
Okay. Would meditation be an expression of self-love or self-care?
that is more like self-care to me. And self-love is like
Wait,
this, like-
really? Interesting. Because in my mind, self-love is definitely, like, meditation is more like self-love than self-care.
why?
Because if this is purely semantic and we're just making a semantic argument,
Yeah.
then if self-care is something that's more akin to spa, sitting by yourself, like meditation feels very spiritual. It feels very like deep. And I feel like the deeper you go, the more it's an expression of self-love than self-care.
I think what I'm trying to say is like self-love feels like a more general word.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like anytime you're making a decision or doing something to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to that previous decision of just like you're in that toxic relationship and you need to get out and you're sitting by yourself and you decide, you come to the realization that like,
This is bad.
I deserve better.
Yeah.
And you make the decision that like, I'm going to exit this relationship.
Right.
That feels like an expression of self-love. But self-care, it's like these literal things that you're doing for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I know my definition is not that good. I know it's not very clear.
Well, I think does it need to be clear? It seems to be the case that, and here's the thing. It's slightly more complicated for me because I already kind of view most things through the lens of emotivism. Like,
What does that mean?
think of it like this. Think of it like, this is gonna be so off tangent, but it's important to, I think, say. So,
Okay.
when you have an emotion, or when you think something is good or bad, right? You're actually just expressing an emotion. You're not really saying that something is good, like it is normatively good or normatively bad. By normative, I mean like it ought to be or it ought not be.
Okay.
So emotivism is this idea that you recognize that essentially what you think is good and bad is just you saying yay or boo. So when I'm like, I think murder is bad. All I'm really saying is boo murder.
Okay.
This is like
So you're taking the morality out of it.
essentially right. So when it comes to these definitions of what, this is like slightly different, but when it comes to having a definition of self-love versus self-care, all of it is kind of emotive.
Okay.
So your definition not being very clear, I think makes sense because the very notion of self-love and self-care is meant to be ephemeral. It's meant to be kind of difficult to understand the difference between. It's not like meant to be, but it ends up being this way because our conceptions of self-love and conceptions of self-care are rooted in something that I think is very similar, which is this idea of doing what is best for you.
Yeah.
And since I think respect is upstream of that, I think it kind of works in such a way where you have this concept of self-respect, like this idea that I should, it's from the same branch of I ought to do something that is good for me, and it breaks off into these ideas of like, well, if I ought to do what is good for me, then love is the verb, where respect is the root, and love is the expression, if that makes sense. And care is like even more, I think, off branch of that.
Yeah. Don't you think that... I agree with everything you just said, except when you brought it back to respect.
Okay.
The root of love being respect is... I just can't agree with that. I think that...
Interesting.
People that love each other like are disrespectful to each other all the time.
Okay. Do you... I think we just have like a fundamental difference about how we look at what respect is.
Okay. What is respect?
To me, respect is... it's difficult to define respect in a way that isn't the same way that I define love. Because I believe it's love is a derivative of respect. So it kind of makes sense that the definitions would be similar, right? Mm-hmm. I think respect is more... Again, it's very emotive. It's very like... It would be weird to say looking... So the way we define it usually is like looking up to someone, right? I respect them, I look up to them, right? I think respect is... I believe of myself to be the kind of person that I want to be. So for me to respect myself, I am acting like the person that I want to be. Or I believe that I am the person that I want to be.
Okay. And how do you respect someone else?
You see the parts of them that it's in acknowledging the parts of them that you would like to be or that you appreciate.
So it comes back to you at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think most things do.
Interesting.
I think respect has a lot. So like, because I respect you for different reasons than like someone else, like your friend.
I kind of get what you're saying though. I'm thinking of people that I really respect.
Yeah.
In my life, and I kind of think about how, like, I respect them. Well, okay, here's the thing. I respect them because for me it comes back to like I value what you think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that like your opinions, your feelings on various situations, on me as a person, there is a lot of value there, that your perspectives carry a lot of weight. Mm-hmm. And associated with that is that like you have these characteristics that I want to embody more. Mm-hmm. But that's not why I respect you. I think it's because I respect you that I want to embody those traits more.
Well, you respect them because you said respect is like essentially their opinion having weight, right?
Everything about them having weight.
Everything about them. But why do you respect them? Why do they have weight in your life?
Okay, good question. They have weight because they have shown themselves to be... They've demonstrated like capabilities and characteristics that I think are important.
Right. So when you say that, they've demonstrated something that I think is important. Mm-hmm. Isn't that the same kind of thing that I was saying? Like it comes back to you, right? Essentially, your respect for them has everything to do with what you appreciate about them.
Right.
And so the characteristics, qualities, and attributes that you think are really sick, you think that way because there's something that you really appreciate, which is, I think, is my definition of respect, right?
Well, earlier you were saying is because you want those characteristics in yourself.
Well, yeah, but it's also more like you just really appreciate those characteristics, right? Like, it might not be... I mean, if you really appreciate
that's where I got hung up. It's just like...
That you want them for yourself? Yeah,
it's like, I do want them for myself, but that's not why I respect them.
Fair enough. Okay. I think it's just that you appreciate those characteristics, right? Like, you deeply appreciate those characteristics. Yeah. I think deep appreciation is the definition of respect. And your weight, like the weight of their opinions, kind of comes from that. Because you have a deep appreciation for them.
deep appreciation.
So then, if that's my definition of respect, do you see why I think that love comes after a deep appreciation for someone?
Nope. Because I could see the like line that you're following.
Okay, yeah. Watch my line. Watch my.
Like, I cannot agree with this idea that.
What about like a romantic? Like, okay, in a romantic relationship.
Okay.
Is it not the case that you love, like, have you ever, in a romantic context, ever told someone you loved them before you appreciated them?
Yeah. Wait. No.
There's no way, right?
No, but the thing that I keep
that
coming
dead
back
air
to,
was so funny.
the thing that I keep coming back to is
Your retention just went down like 20%.
that like you can lose appreciation for somebody,
Yeah.
but not lose love for them.
Okay. I don't know if I
like
believe
think about
that.
the examples where you brought up romantic relationships.
Yeah.
Think about examples where somebody cheats on somebody else.
Yeah.
And like it's this horribly egregious thing,
Right.
and your respect for them goes down,
Mm-hmm.
your appreciation for them goes down,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes like people still choose them regardless. Like people work past those things
Okay. Yeah.
because they are still able to love them and choose them despite feeling good
Do those
about
people,
them.
do they still have respect for them?
I
Can you lose all your respect for someone and still love them?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know if you can.
I
I don't
think
know if
it's
you really can.
I think that if you have to respect someone in order to love them, then it's not really love.
Okay.
I think there's a.
I think I strongly disagree with
I think
I
that,
think you're a dumbass.
I think there's something to be said about like your definition of love. I think like
If you have to respect someone in order to love them, you don't really love them. Is that what you said?
Yeah, because like you're
Okay, I don't love you.
That's funny. That's funny. It's just like too easy. Do you know what I mean? Like love is all about.
Okay.
It's
Love isn't meant to be hard, though. By definitionally, it doesn't need to be hard in order to be love. It just is true.
I know it doesn't need to be hard.
Okay.
But I think that, like, who are you to say that I can't love someone even though I don't respect them? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
I mean, you can say who are you to say, but you have to address the argument, not me.
Well, it's just a choice that someone can make. Like, they can just choose to love somebody.
You know, I'm not. The more I think about that, the more I'm less convinced that you can just choose to love someone. You can just choose to love someone. I'm not so sure.
Okay,
It's really that easy. I think your way is actually too easy. No.
No. My way
Can you? Okay. No.
is very simple.
No. Shut up. I don't.
Okay, finish your point.
No. Okay. If I just show you a picture of a person, I give you no more information about them. Can you choose to love them?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't mean much because you don't know them.
Wait, why doesn't it mean much?
Because it's not based on much.
Well then, what? So is that love less? Okay, is love binary or is it gradential? I also already know your opinion on this, and
That's not possible. I don't know my opinion on
well,
it.
you told me we had this conversation a while ago. I don't know if
Okay,
you remember.
well, I think it's changed to I don't know.
Okay, do you want to hear what your opinion was?
Sure.
It was binary. You said it was binary.
I could see why I would say that.
Yeah.
I think that. Wait, can you say the question again?
Do you think that love is binary or gradential?
And what were we talking about before that?
Whether your love for somebody matters because you don't know them that much.
Oh, okay.
So the reason I asked is because if your love is binary, which is what I thought it was, then why would it not matter that much?
So there's a distinction here between I'm not talking about how much you love somebody.
Okay.
I'm talking about how much meaning there is behind it. Right?
How much meaning there is behind the love?
Yeah, because I feel like
Sorry, wait.
feel like it's obvious that if you know somebody really well,
Yeah.
Okay, here's a better example.
Okay.
Say you only know the good parts about somebody.
Okay.
And you're like, wow, this person is amazing.
Yeah.
I love them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's the first 3 dates with somebody,
Okay.
right? And both people are putting their best foot forward.
Okay.
And you're like, this person is
I don't know.
amazing, and I love them. And you're like, you fall in love, and you genuinely feel it, right? Versus,
but you said love wasn't a feeling.
no. I mean, like,
Boom, roasted.
I mean, like, I'm like, you're not just saying it, like, you actually mean it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're choosing to love them.
Yeah, like
Okay.
you actually mean it, right?
Yeah.
Versus, like, 3 years later, and you know all of
The little
you know all of their flaws. You know how bad, like how you.
They're milk first, cereal second people. Yeah. You don't love
You
them
know
anymore.
how irritating they can be. You know how unfair they can be. You know how, like, downright evil they can be sometimes because
Right.
everybody is a little bit, but you still love them regardless. I
You
feel
think-
like
Okay.
that.
Downright evil is interesting there. You think everyone's a little downright evil?
Yeah, given the right conditions, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I think I agree with you. I've never heard it expressed that way before.
Yeah, man. Everyone's got 2 wolves. It's just which one you choose to feed.
It's so cringe.
It's true.
There's no way you use the
Why
two
is it?
wolves.
Why is it cringe and cliche? We talked about this. Why is it cringe and cliche?
Okay, yeah, it's cringe and cliche because it's true.
Because it's true.
So
Okay.
it's-
Period. Moving on.
Okay. Damn.
Back to what we were talking about.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So the point you were making was that.
This is a bit of a tangent, but yeah, I'm just saying that, like, the more you know about somebody, especially if you know more about the, like, not so great parts of them, and you
The
still
more
choose,
your love means.
it has more, like, substance to it.
So then is love
For
then
sure.
then love must be credential, right?
No.
Okay.
No. Because when you say is it credential or binary, you're talking about how much. You're talking about the sender. I'm talking about the receiver.
Okay, so you mean that love means more to the person the love is directed towards if they know you more.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I also think that when you said it originally, when you're talking about the guy, like the picture of the guy, like a random guy.
Okay.
Did I say homeless guy?
No, you just said a picture of a person.
It's like that would have been incredibly offensive if I said homeless guy for no reason. Okay, now I brought it up.
Yeah, now you're being offensive.
Okay, but anyway, if you just have a picture of a guy, that love doesn't mean anything to that guy. I don't think that's what you meant when you said that the love wouldn't mean anything or wouldn't mean as much. Not the love, but like it wouldn't. You said it wouldn't mean as much or something like that. Right? You weren't talking about how much it meant to him, right? It doesn't mean anything to him. He doesn't exist.
That's fair. Yeah.
So what were you referring to when you said it wouldn't mean as much?
Okay. I think the distinction I was trying to make is there's meaning as much, and there's,
Loving as much.
like, yeah, there's, like, the quantity, a question of quantity and a question of quality.
Okay.
So what are you talking about? You're
I'm
talking about
talking
quantity.
Quantity of love?
Yeah, that's
I don't know if that exists, which is what I'm asking.
Yeah, that was your
Yeah,
question.
yes, this is my question. Is there a quantity of love?
You were asking about quantity, and I was commenting on quality.
Okay, so you're saying the quality of the love is higher if you know them more.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you mean by quality of love? Because quantity of love and quality of love, to me, seem like they mean the same thing. Like we're making a completely arbitrary distinction between quantity and quality. If I love you more, does that not mean the same thing as having a finer point on the love?
A finer point on
Like
love?
it's like I love you so much, right? Those words.
Okay.
Would you not be saying when I say I love you so much, am I not making the same qualification or making the same claim about the kind of love that I feel towards you?
Yeah.
You don't think so?
No.
What do you mean?
Think about like people who love celebrities, and they don't
feel
know.
like that's not love though. That's infatuation for sure. It's like obsessive. That's certainly not love.
I don't know. I mean,
well, the way that we've defined love, or I don't even know what your definition of love is, but you by your own accord. So here's the issue with this conversation, right? Here's your issue. Is that you can talk in circles about this, but you have no definition for it. And I said earlier, like,
yeah,
it's fine that you don't have a definition for it. I take it back. You probably need to have some sort of definition in order to have the conversation about love.
For love, a
certainly.
definition.
Because
of
if you can't have any definition, then you can like kind of make it whatever you want it to be.
Love is.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. No more.
Love is when you choose somebody.
So in a job interview.
No. Okay, I guess choose is not a very like specific word.
Like, yeah, I guess.
I
know it sounds pedantic, but I think it's important.
I got you. You're trying to be like specific about the definition.
Yeah. Because I'm defending a definition right now, and you're defending whatever's in your head at the moment.
Right. I never really verbalized it very well. Love is putting
Sorry, in my head I'm just like dead air 1 second, dead air 2 seconds, dead air 3 seconds.
That's funny. I didn't know what that meant, but
dead air, yeah, it's when there's no one talking.
It's
just blank. There's I think I
do that a lot.
There's literally this is why your podcast isn't doing very well. Like the thing, I think the way that you're taught to this, and we both don't know how to do this. So is that when someone's thinking, the other one's supposed to be talking, so that there's no dead air.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, but you're the one thinking, so I should be the one talking. I just didn't.
How are you supposed to? You're supposed to be listening.
Right. This is just not conducive.
So screw the rules.
Okay.
Man.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. Screw the rules. I'm sorry for anyone who's listening.
Why are we
you're
making our own content to follow other people's rules about content?
I don't know. Why are you a teacher that is trying to figure out the way to be a teacher through someone else when you have incredible latitude?
I'm not trying to figure it out through somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like you didn't really understand that whole...
I mean, probably not.
I think you're missing a lot of context.
I got really excited when you told me about that, because that seems like so awesome and cool.
We're getting way off topic.
Yeah, I know.
So... Oh yeah, I was defining love.
Yeah.
Love is when you are putting... Here, I'll throw a definition out, and if you tear it apart, I'll make it better.
Okay.
Love
we'll hone
is when you're choosing to put somebody else's well-being first in that moment.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean it won't benefit you as well. It just means that the other person's well-being or the other person's feelings or needs are
to what extent?
focus.
Is it like so say that I see a kid like jump into a pool that's way too big for them. I pull them out. Do I love that kid?
Yeah, I think you're showing love for that kid, yeah.
Do you love them or are you showing love for them?
From my definition, it's the same thing.
Okay. So show because the verb is the action is the definition, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
The whole, which I want to speak on this because I'm sure like you might be wondering it, and I'm sure other people are too, but like the whole feeling of love thing is not something I put
subscribe
a whole
to at all.
lot of.
Do you think there is any feeling of love?
It's not that I don't subscribe to it. It's just like I don't think it's that important. And that might be a like crazy thing to say.
You don't think the feeling is that important?
No, because it's
I don't know if it's that
feeling,
crazy. I mean, like,
and it comes and goes, and it gets stronger and it gets weaker, and it's not really something that I think is smart to build anything on. It's just, it's like.
well, I don't think it's smart to build a relationship on love. So one of the things that Alex Ramosi says, which I like some of his things, I don't like some of the other ones, but one of the things I think he said that was
So
really,
you're agreeing with me?
maybe. I'm still working out in my head.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm trying to see if this definition holds up under scrutiny. But one of the things that Alex Ramosi says that I think is like pretty good is the best way to evaluate a relationship, or not maybe the best way, but one of the best ways to evaluate a relationship is to determine whether this would work if we didn't love each other. Right? I think that's a better way to.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's important. Does this relationship make sense if we don't love each other? Which I think that's much more solid. So I don't believe we should build any relationships with love in the first place. I think we should base it on respect, but that's because you don't think I love you.
Wait, what?
Yeah, because you said if your relationship has to be based on respect, you don't love them.
Oh yeah, that was a pretty strong statement.
I think that was crazy wrong.
I feel like it was pretty. I was feeling pretty strong about it 10 minutes ago. I'm not feeling so strong about it now.
I don't think it's fair.
I guess what I was trying to say is just that, like, to me, it's crazy that you can't love somebody just because you don't respect them.
I think you're
like
saying
because my definition.
Can you choose
of
to
love,
respect someone?
Yeah.
Okay, well then, how is this functionally any different than your definition of love? Right? If I could choose to respect someone, right? It could be the case that I say, even if this person did something bad, I choose to respect them anyway. You said like you lost respect for them. Like if you lost respect for someone, would you choose to stop loving them, or like not choose to stop loving them?
I see what you're saying.
But if it's the case that I can choose to respect someone, then why do I have to stop?
So do you think you can choose to respect somebody?
Yeah, for sure.
I actually don't
Yeah, I know you wouldn't
think so anymore. I think maybe it's more like you choose what your values are.
Okay.
And then how...
Can you respect everybody as a human?
Respect everybody as a human.
Right, like respect... I respect that you're human. Like you're a person. And you deserve... You deserve to be treated like a person.
Yeah.
Which is a definition of respect.
When
right?
you ask that question, it's like, okay, respect is very clearly a choice.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So if respect is very clearly a choice, I can love someone on the basis of them being a person. So I think what I really like about my definition of respect and my definition of love is that it shrinks and stretches depending on what kind of respect I hold for them. So I can hold a very basic kind of love for everybody because they're a human.
Okay.
But I can hold a more deep kind of love because I have a more deep kind of respect for certain people. So for you, I know you very well. I have a lot of respect for you in certain ways, and so my love for you is attuned towards the amount of respect I have for you and the kinds of respect that I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
I respect you as more than just a human. I respect you as a brother. I respect you as a friend. I respect your ideas, and so I can love you on the basis of those things, which is a much more solid foundation. Well, it's not really, yeah, it's actually just as solid as respect for you as a human because that will never change, but it's much wider of a foundation and so something much larger can be built there.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay. So I owned the feminazis, right?
What?
It's a Ben Shapiro quote. So, do you not grow up during the Ben Shapiro owns the feminazis? To be clear, I don't support this.
I think I know what you're talking about.
When I first started,
like on YouTube.
yeah, when I was first growing up, like I first got introduced to YouTube.
That said...
Like the way that I got into politics, the way that I understood politics at the very beginning was Ben Shapiro owns the feminazis.
Really, that's what got
me into politics. Well, no, but kind of, right? It was the second thing that got me into politics. The first thing that got me into politics is when Obama got elected.
Okay.
In 2008.
That's what I thought.
And then I went on YouTube, and that was a mistake. I went down that pipeline so fast.
Well,
I was a young, malleable mind.
You could say it's a mistake, but it's...
I don't think it was a mistake, I
You're
guess.
here now.
Yeah.
So was it really a mistake?
I suppose I don't believe that anything is really a mistake.
Oh God, let's not get into that on this episode. We can leave that for when we actually have.
Yeah, my channel's called Political Therapy. My whole thing is I do politics, man.
Do you talk about how you don't believe in free will on that podcast or on that YouTube channel?
Oh, I haven't yet, but I guess I
Are you going to?
Yeah, at some point probably. I probably need to. Do you want to talk about it?
No. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I probably will at some point talk more about why I don't believe in free will. I mean, a lot of my political beliefs are downstream of my philosophical beliefs.
Okay.
Which I think is the way that it should be.
Yeah.
I think it's
that
really
makes sense.
Bad idea.
It should all be lined up.
Well, it's not even that. It's that if you start making political assertions off of modern politics, you're gonna get really kind of pushed into this constellation of beliefs, right? Like if you're a liberal, if you're a Democrat, I don't know if you want to talk about this in your Betterment Blueprint podcast, but if you're a Democrat, you're gonna inherit what a constellation of beliefs, a kind of like this is what I think Destiny says this, where like you will believe all of the same things, right? Some people call it an echo chamber. It's not really an echo chamber. It's that if I know one of your beliefs, I can accurately predict like 3 other ones.
Okay.
And if you're like a center right, you can also, if I know one of your beliefs, I can accurately predict the other ones.
Okay.
Right? If you make your political assertions off of your philosophical assertions, then you're no longer held to these constellations. You now get to pick and choose what you think is best from everything, which I think is just a better way to do politics.
Yeah.
In the first place.
And a better way to do
life.
Anything, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think essentially. I think what Socrates is like, his whole thing is that everything is essentially philosophical. So what we're doing now, like the conversation we're having now, is essentially what philosophy is. It's this, what we just did about self-love, self-respect, that's how philosophy works. That's how he thought philosophy should be done, which is you have an assertion and then you have to ask a bunch of questions to get down to the bottom of that assertion, like whether this is true or whether this isn't true, and you work it out. And now that you have that and you know this thing is true because you've worked it out, you can now base your other beliefs off of this concept, right? That's how everything he believed ought to be done.
Cool.
Yeah, that's why I do. That's why I have political therapy. I think the name is, I'm still concerned about the name, to be honest.
So what do you like really talk about on that channel?
I talk about 3 things for the most part, which is politics, but not angry, essentially. Philosophy to some extent. So like free will isn't a political thing, right? It'd be more philosophical. But I think philosophy, since it is upstream of my political beliefs, is important to talk about and understanding different philosophical ideas.
Okay.
And then sometimes I was thinking I might talk about some things that are just helpful to people. So like something similar to what you do. So I'll be like a competitor in your market.
You can tell yourself that.
Okay. We'll see what happens when I have significantly more subscribers than you on YouTube.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
Your channel name is the Betterment Blueprint podcast, right? Or what is it just Tashawn Fernando?
No, I think it's Tashawn Fernando
Oh,
coaching.
okay. I think my name's better.
Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah.
Well, I did that because it's like that's the master channel, and then
are you having a bunch of channels off of that?
Well, there's the podcast,
which is the Betterment
which
Blueprint.
are videos.
I'm just gonna say it as many times so people will remember your podcast name.
I mean, they're listening to it. Hopefully, they know the name.
Yeah, but once they listen to one, if the next time they want to consume content, if I say Betterment Blueprint podcast, then they're going to remember the Betterment Blueprint podcast. So the next time they want to listen to the Betterment Blueprint podcast.
Kind of hard for you to say, huh?
It's a little bit difficult. It's not that. It doesn't roll off the tongue very well.
The Betterment Blueprint podcast?
Say it again?
The Betterment Blueprint podcast?
One more time?
The Betterment Blueprint podcast?
Okay. You're stumbling a little bit.
So, what do you think are some challenges to practicing self-love?
I think, well, I'm a philosophical Buddhist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of our challenges to practicing self-love all come from different desires that we have that are unskillful, right? We have these things that we want in our life,
Mm-hmm.
and they get in the way of doing the things that we know we need to do. So
Okay.
I have a desire to be liked by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? But that gets really strongly in the way of me liking the way that I act in the world. Right? We do this all the time where we just lie about things that we don't need to lie about.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's easier. And
Or try to look a particular way.
yeah, exactly.
Even though it's not really who
yeah,
you are.
yeah. I mean, like, you're wearing that awful shirt, and I'm sure you don't actually like it, but you think that other people like it.
I like the shirt.
Oh,
actually.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it looks great. So essentially,
Didn't see that coming. Did you?
Sure. So I think that's the thing, right? Where your desires just keep getting in the way of actually practicing self-love, because self-love has everything to do with the way that you feel about yourself, and your desires have everything to do with the way that you think you ought to be perceived in the world, or some other variation of things that you want but don't really need.
Mm.
Or what is the way that you feel but not really. You said something about this like a few months ago about the difference between feeling something and really wanting it, right?
Yeah, there's like things that we need, things that we want, and things that we feel.
Right, and the things that we
think, and they're all different.
Yeah. And so the things that
It's important not to confuse them for
I think
each other.
our feelings and our emotions are really important in that we need to let them wash over us and feel our feelings, but they aren't actually indicative of very much of anything. They're
Right.
indicators, which is kind of weird because they did just say that they're not indicative of anything, but they are indicators of something, but they're not law. They're not the fact of the matter. The fact of the matter exists much deeper within you. It's something you have to tease out.
Right.
I think after some meditation, I think after some time alone, I think after some moments spent journaling or something, it's something you genuinely have to draw out of yourself. But if you listen to your initial impulses, you're going to get the wrong thing almost always.
See, you're saying that oftentimes people's feelings get in the way of them practicing self-love.
People draw conclusions outside of equanimity. Like before they've reached an equilibrium in their state,
Yeah.
they come to a conclusion.
Mm.
And that's a really dangerous place to be, because your decisions you make out of anger, decisions you make out of sadness, decisions you make out of spite.
Yeah.
I know, because I've made decisions out of anger, sadness, and spite before.
Yeah.
They're almost always wrong. They almost always don't reflect the truth of the situation. And you might never even get to know that, because when you've made the decision, a lot of times there's no escape hatch to find out what was actually true about the situation.
Yeah.
You might, cut someone off, or you might block them. You might make them angry. You might decide that you need to excuse yourself from a situation and walk away before you actually.
Or you might do the opposite.
Yeah, or you might even go further in.
Go into situations
Yeah.
that you don't need to be in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they feel good, or they like quell your feelings.
Yeah.
But they're not actually what you need.
Yeah, what soothes you is not the same as what you need.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. That's tough.
I think we just we seek pleasure and avoid pain, right? Almost habitually.
Yeah. And
that's because our body is attuned to doing that. And our mind is attuned to doing that. But if you really think about it, there's a lot of pain that we should seek, and there's a lot of pleasure that we should avoid.
Right.
And if that's the case, if we know that that's the case, then we can't always trust the mechanisms by which we execute that initial, like, that executive function, right? If the executive function is seek pleasure, avoid pain, and we know that that's not always what we should do, then we can't immediately trust everything that tells us that we should do those things. And I think we do that really, really often. So I think that gets in the way a lot.
Yeah, I totally have to agree. Thinking about myself or people that I know, I feel like it's really obvious when you're looking at other people. You can see it really clearly, like when they're doing something that is just helping them feel better. And because you know them, that's not really what they need.
I think you I think you also know when you're doing it.
Yeah, you do, but like, it's really easy to lie to yourself.
It's concerningly easy to lie to yourself.
Yeah. I mean, there's no one to call you out.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I had to learn in being, I felt like there's this thing, right, where if you feel something for a really long time, or you have an emotion or thought that exists for a really, really long time, like upwards of 6 months to a year, maybe 2 years, you start to believe that it is true based solely on the fact that it has been around for a really long time. And I think that is a mechanism by which we believe something, right? It's we tell ourselves that, well, if I felt this for so long, it just must be true.
Exposure therapy.
Yes, it's literally, yeah, you expose yourself to a belief for so long.
It's like the opposite of therapy.
Yeah. Yeah. Exposure trauma.
Yeah.
Where you re-traumatize yourself. I don't know if trauma is the right word, but you re-traumatize yourself so many times that, like, wow, this must be the way the world functions. And also, one thing I discovered recently that I thought was, like, revolutionary for me is that your brain, I think I might have told you this, I don't know if I did, your brain will just go back and rewrite parts of your history in order to fit in with the trauma that you've experienced. And trauma can be, little traumas over a period of time that, like, coalesce into something larger. So if you have something that changes the way that you think about yourself, which is one thing that I learned is maladaptation is essentially trauma. It's not the same as trauma, but it certainly is at least an indicator of trauma.
Okay.
Like maladaptive behavior is essentially what a traumatic behavior does to you, right? It's like when you were in a bad situation, you adapted, right? You did something to adapt to that situation, and when you got out of that situation, you continued with that adaptation. But now it's maladaptive,
right?
Because you're no longer in this terrible situation. So, in that case, I forgot where I was going with this. What was I just saying?
You were talking about how, like, you have experienced these traumas, and then you adapt to them, but then once you're out of that situation,
I mean, essentially you have the trauma, you adapt to the situation, and your brain will go back and rewrite things, right? So your brain will go back, and after you've experienced this, like, maladaptive behavior, you'll go back and be like, well, all of these experiences point to this idea that I have about myself, or this idea that I have about the world. And so it's self-affirming, and it's this awful spiral where it's almost impossible for you to recognize any part of it isn't true, because it rewrites everything around you in order to be self-affirming. So the only way you could ever know that it isn't self-affirming is by somebody else telling you that something is inconsistent with your evaluation of the world. So if you keep all of it to yourself, if you just, like, push it down, which is what I did for a really long time, if you push it down and you allow it to fester, it will again self-correct the rest of your memory. It will change your perception of the world. It will complete the loop, so that there's nothing that seems wrong except for the fact that it's very obviously wrong to anyone who you're explaining this to, because it doesn't make sense, right?
It almost, sometimes I think about, and I'm also thinking about it right now, how, like, sometimes that what you're thinking or what the way that you're going about this doesn't really make sense, and you resist sharing it with people because that they'll point out that this doesn't really make sense, and then you can't ignore it anymore.
It's weird how it's so easy to ignore the behavior. Like, it's so easy to ignore obviously wrong behavior. Like, and it's so obviously wrong that it becomes almost impossible to perceive. Weirdly, like, we're aware that we can't tell someone else because they'll say that it's wrong, they'll say that this doesn't make sense, but to us it makes perfect sense. And somehow we don't see the irony in that, because there's a very deep irony in the fact that
I'm also not seeing that.
Okay,
irony
let me explain it. Maybe I'm crazy, but here's the irony I see. We know that if we explain this experience that we're having to someone else, they'll say it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But it makes perfect sense to us, right? And we're so caught up in the way that we perceive things that we assume that the way that we perceive things is true. And so we can just very easily discount somebody else's opinion, though we can recognize that their opinion is not the same as our own.
Right.
Right. And that's crazy. It's crazy that we can do that. Because we are aware of the fact that we have essentially a maladaptive behavior. Like we know that this is wrong.
Yeah.
But even though we know that this is wrong, we're able to convince ourselves simultaneously that people around us will tell us, like everyone around us will tell us that it's wrong. We think that it's right. We know that we're maladaptive, and yet we can't do anything about it, or we shouldn't do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's why I think a lot of personal development, and also like more specifically getting yourself out of those tough cycles, it comes down to just courage.
Yeah.
Like
what was it that thing?
You just have to you have to be courageous enough to call yourself out. You have to be courageous enough to share what you know you're probably going to get called out on with other people.
Yeah. I heard someone say that the amount of growth that you can predict will happen in yourself is essentially a function of how long you can look in the mirror without turning away. I think that's true.
Yeah.
The more tolerant you become of your discomfort of looking in the mirror, the more you can actually grow.
Yeah. Yeah, because so much growth doesn't happen because we ignore that it needs to happen.
Yeah. Was it it takes so much longer, and it is in the end aggregate so much more pain to ignore the amount of stuff that we have going on, because we like the act of repressing it is very painful, because like we wake up, we have maybe 10 seconds of like
those 10 seconds are good.
Yeah, those 10 seconds are really great, where you're just like, oh, I'm not a person. Oh, I'm a person.
Everything hits you.
Yeah, everything hits you. You're like, oh, there's things that I'm avoiding. There are things that I don't want to talk about. There are things that make me feel awful.
Yeah.
I don't want to do. Okay, let me self-soothe. Let me self-soothe.
And then we
let
just
me
chase
self-soothe.
distractions.
Yeah, the entire day.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, because the fact of the matter is, we know that we shouldn't have our phone next to our bed. We know we shouldn't start scrolling. There's a reason why we do it. And if you aren't able to confront the reasons why you self-soothe, you will never stop self-soothing. You can't stop self-soothing because you can't even confront it in the first place.
Yeah.
It's very reasonable. Like, the pain that you experience is so overwhelming, and it is so chronic that the only logical thing to do is self-soothe.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't acknowledge that, like, the no number of morning routines that you gain from Andrew Huberman or I don't know, Joe Rogan. I don't know if he does morning routines.
I don't think he's really into that.
You don't think Joe Rogan's into morning routines?
He's just not into telling people what to do with their morning routines.
Cool.
Yeah.
I don't know, whoever you're listening to that's telling you what to do your morning routine. Like, it won't work.
Yeah.
It can't work.
I think that reminds me of, I feel like one of the biggest things me and my therapist have worked on is me feeling my feelings.
Yeah.
Like, I get the sense that, okay, I have this feeling and I need to feel it.
Yeah.
And I think most people are just so good at recognizing, maybe not the recognizing part, but like just pushing the feeling down.
And the pushing of the feeling down is interesting because everyone recognizes that I shouldn't push my feelings down, but they don't really recognize when they're pushing their feelings down.
Yeah. That's where like a lot of the like ignorance is. I
think when we feel a feeling, we don't realize that when we self-soothe that what we are doing is pushing the feeling down. Because if I like went up to someone and I interviewed them, I put a microphone in their face and I'm like, yo, are you like, do you think you should push your feelings down? Like, of course not. It's like, when you feel sad, what do you do? It's like, I get on my phone, of course. It's like, well, aren't you pushing your feelings down in this regard? And it's like, yeah, I mean, obviously. I think if you like give someone that, like, they'll say obviously, yeah, of course, I know. But it's worth bringing some attention to the fact that your self-soothing behaviors are what's pushing your feelings back down.
Yeah.
And what it means to sit with your feelings isn't to intellectualize them. It's not to understand them. It's just to let it wash over you.
Mm-hmm. There is something to be said, though, about, like, as with everything, there's balance, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting how, like, 15 minutes ago, we were talking about how our feelings, like, get in the way of our progress in our process of self-love. And now we're talking about how not feeling your feelings
Yeah.
can also get in the
For
way
sure.
of your process of self-love. So there's definitely a balance, because I'm thinking of plenty of moments where I am sitting in my feelings, and what I need to do is just like stop. Like I just need to go do something else. I
Yeah.
need to move on. I need to.
Yeah, sometimes you need to process them through not focusing, like hyper focusing on them.
Yeah.
Your body will break down your feelings over time, and like that's why sometimes. So this is like a very common. I heard this from a psychologist, so I'm fairly confident in saying this out loud. When somebody goes through a very massive trauma, like losing their family or something, something that they tell you that you, what are you doing?
I think the camera's gonna die soon.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Oh well, this has become an audio only episode.
We should just end it in like
Yeah.
I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that they say that you should do is, if you've gone through a massive trauma, is like play video games. It's completely fine to do something that gets your mind off of it, because your mind and your body will slowly start processing things, even if you're not completely focused on them. It's okay to like.
Interesting.
It's not a long-term solution. You can't just play your video games out of your trauma, right? But what you can do is, for a little bit, when it gets like super overwhelming, just switch the task. Do something else. Do something you enjoy. Your mind will take off of it. Your mind will your brain will not be focused on it. Your mind will take some time and start to break it down little by little by little. And when you get back to it, it'll become a little bit more manageable. And then you're able to process it a little bit more. And then when it gets overwhelming, go do something else.
Yeah.
And those are all incredibly effective.
Yeah. I mean, we all have our limits.
Yeah.
For how much pain we can take in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to be aware. Like, you could be super courageous and you might have all this pain you need to process. Does not mean you should just try to process it all.
One of the things that I do really badly is like when I start getting excited when I feel like my emotions start to come up, in maybe not a good way. Like whenever I start feeling anxiety, I throw my phone across the room. I'm like, all right, let's do this. Let's feel this anxiety.
So weird.
I know I recognize that it's very odd. It's good in some ways, but sometimes my anxiety doesn't need to be. Oh, look, I think it's dead. Let's look at that. Now it's an audio only episode. Yeah. Essentially, my anxiety, like my anxiety is through the roof. I just need to not focus on this right now. Do something else. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well,
that video recording is going to go so weird because it's just going to be, at a certain point, it just cuts off.
You
edit before it, yeah.
I'll just throw something in there at the end and cap it in, but...
Sounds good.
Obviously, self-love is a big topic.
Yeah.
And we're kind of just like flying by the seat of our pants here, just talking about whatever comes up or whatever's relevant to us, but I am sure that we'll probably do this again because this was pretty fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this.
There's so much.
I think as we also, because we're very green behind the ears, or wet behind the ears, isn't it? It's wet behind the ears, right? When you're new.
My ears aren't wet. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's okay. You're green and you're wet behind the ears.
You might want to see a doctor about
okay. Okay. Anyway, because we're both very green at this, I think it will become very... Okay, can you stop?
Yeah.
I think it'll be more interesting as time goes. I really enjoyed this episode as well.
Yeah. There was also a lot of hijinks that went on before we even pressed record.
We went through 6 takes.
We probably won't take as long to set up next time.
I hope not.
Or maybe we'll
this is my first time using this setup, which is really interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, to all of those who are listening, thank you.
All your one listeners.
Yep. Which I think.
Hi, I'm man.
It's our mom. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining in. If you want to watch most of the episode on video,
some of it,
it'll be on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We'll be back.
And if you are interested in hearing more about politics, in hearing more about Perhaps free will. I don't know if I'll do that next episode, but that'll probably wait. I think because it's very difficult to make the arguments that I want to make if everyone in the comment section is like, "But what about free will? Can anyone really take responsibility for anything?" It's like, well, yeah, but it takes a long time. Anyway, yeah. If you want to hear more about politics, if you want to hear more about current events, and more about a more empathetic, more compassionate approach to politics, check out Political Therapy on YouTube.
Cool. And say your name one more time for the people listening.
My name is Shashan.
And your last name?
I don't put my last name out online.
Okay, it's Fernando. So, please dox him.
Okay, well,
all right.
My address is